Hey, when I was in Bulgaria several years ago for the DevReach conference, they took us on a trip to a monastery near the border of Greece, the Rila Monastery, I think it was. And I walked past the kitchen, and I noticed a man in a robe cooking potato chips in a kettle of hot fat.
Huh.
So I asked him if he was a friar.
Oh.
You know what he said?
What's that?
Nope. I'm the chipmunk.
And we came all this way for that. That was good.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Patrick's still in an undisclosed location somewhere in the Southwest.
Right.
Good weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah. Right. Agreed.
20 degrees here.
Yeah. You keep your mouth shut
Yep.
when you're talking to us.
We're 3 times that.
Yeah.
We're about 3 times that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, before we get started, you remember we've been talking about this whole backup thing we did yesterday based on a comment from Mastodon. Well, got another message from Mastodon, and this is on the discussion about backups on Security This Week. I would like to give SyncThing a shout out. It's an open source application for Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, and Android, which securely syncs a folder with another computer or device on your network. Things like app configuration, documents, etc. can sync laptops to your workstation, to a NAS server or whatever, and it's 100% local. No subscription or cloud services getting in the way. Hey, I like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, I've used that way back, and I forgot about it. So I'm glad they brought it up.
Yeah. I also had somebody reach out to me, a cybersecurity expert and buddy of mine, a guy named Dane, who's he's like, hey, listen, I heard the show, and you guys were talking about Synology, and Synology is really cool, but lots of people may not want to go out and buy a Synology and throw the backup software on it and that sort of stuff. But what he had brought up, which I completely forgot about, which is really kind of cool, is he actually took some old hardware, just like an old laptop, and puts FreeNAS on it. Formats the whole thing, puts FreeNAS on it, which is now called TrueNAS. And you pretty much have a Synology. So you have like apps, and you can do backups, and you can do all that good stuff. And it's just now it's a NAS sitting on your network. So, which is really kind of cool. If you guys have just an old computer kicking around, you get all that functionality.
And just make it your backup target.
Yeah. And he said he even plugs drives into it, will do backups, and then just pulls them off. Right. So now he has offline backups, which is a great idea.
So he's got a JBOD? Is it a JBOD?
It is. Yeah.
Carl, do you know what a JBOD is? It's just a bunch of disks.
JBOD. Just a bunch of disks.
Actually, that's a term from the storage industry from about a decade ago. It's like, well, we have a JBOD over here, and it made everything sound official. And it's like, what's a JBOD?
If you'd like to have a JBOD, you can do that too. And you're like, ooh, that's really kind of cool.
I'm going to throw another one out there that I had used for years, and it was really cool. Unraid.
Yeah.
Unraid.net. So this is a powerful, easy-to-use operating system for self-hosted servers and network-attached storage.
Wow.
And basically what you do is you make a boot USB stick, and you always boot from the USB stick, and it loads up, and it's all in text mode or whatever, Linux. And then you can hit it and share to it, connect to it as a share, and you basically just add drives, and you get an admin page, a web page, and you can turn it on, turn it off, add new things. Just keep adding drives to it, and it'll automatically adjust. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That's cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
So there, we have a couple different options there, dear listeners, if you're looking to do some backups, and some of them you don't have to spend a lot of money.
So let's talk about that for 1 minute before we move on. And that is, I like open source when I get it from a credible source. And that I know that people with integrity and skills are maintaining the project. But if I were to go to SyncThing again and start using it, which I may, I'm going to look into the people who are maintaining it. I'm going to look into the pull requests and who's been able to put code in. And I might even take a look at the code myself or have someone else look at the code before I trust it. And so we do that automatically with brands.
Yeah.
Like if you trust Amazon, then, you use their AWS. If you trust Microsoft, Google, etc., we do that automatically. That's the shorthand. But you got to do the legwork with open source because somebody can insert that. And especially if they're not in the country, they might not be subject to our laws.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a big thing. Like I know if I have a US based company or Western based company, I can sue them if they do something untoward. They're going to be prosecuted. It's going to be a loss of reputation. What do I do to somebody in the middle of another continent that doesn't have extradition laws if they put a back door in? So unfortunately, I'm always the doom and gloom guy. Open source is wonderful, but you have caveat emptor. You have to be buyer beware.
If you're the doom and gloom guy, Dwayne is the point and shoot guy, right?
I'm the physical doom and gloom guy.
Yeah, you're the physical point and shoot guy. I'm the digital
slash guy.
Point and shoot guy.
Right.
All right. So I want to start off by showing you guys or bringing you guys attention to a YouTube channel. And it's tech support scams. Ooh. Jim Browning is this guy's, nom de plume.
Nom de plume.
He's always, blurred out and everything. What he does is he goes after scammers.
Oh, I like it.
And you guys have seen some of these. What do you think of Jim Browning?
Yes.
I love him.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
I love him. I love the work.
He focuses on the tech support, and he lets them get to a point where he gets enough information about them and how they're connecting and what they're doing so that he can play along until he suddenly knows where they are, knows who they are, knows, hacks back almost is what you would say.
Do you remember in the early days of telephones, you remember when you used to have that device on your wall and stuff, and you were pretty much anonymous. Nobody really knew who you were calling from. And then they started, all the the Rockford files and stuff started introducing phone tapping and, tracing so they could trace calls and stuff. And you were always afraid someone was tracing your call.
Yeah, I remember that.
It kind of reminds me of that. But this guy is very clever in how he goes at it.
Right.
And he even talks to victims, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder how legal a lot of it is.
Well,
so it comes down to whether someone would want to prosecute.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So we would never go and hack the Chinese government, but would the U.S. government prosecute us if we did? I'm not sure they would.
Yeah.
So
hey boys,
it's
go over there. All right. Yeah. Don't do that.
I've gotten all of my China visits out of my system.
As Carl says, hey, listen, our next live security this week is going to be in Beijing. Let's.
Probably not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
I'm getting my cold back.
All right, so that's really good, and you guys should check that out, not just for ideas of how you can fight back if you really want to, but some really entertaining stories there. And I sent it to my mother, Grandma Franklin, and, she's 86, and she says, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I think I get the subtext, which is be careful. She says,
for a while,
just wait till you're 86, she says.
For a while, when I was answering phones, I would get calls. Microsoft has detected. I'm from Microsoft, and we've detected that your system is under attack, and we need to fix that. And for a long time, I would go along with them as long as I could before I actually had to do something.
Right.
And even say, "Oh no, my dog just got in a fight. I'll be right back," and I'll put down the phone and see how long they last. Because the idea is, the longer they're on the phone with me, the less time they have to go after someone else who they might get.
All right, let's move on to Linux devices, which are under attack by a never-before-seen worm based on the Mirai malware,
Mirai.
M-I-R-A-I.
A while back, the Mirai source code became available.
Yeah.
And we've seen some copycat, versions coming out of it since then. So it's not surprising that it's a Mirai-based malware, because it was a pretty good malware. Mirai used to infect cameras and other IoT devices, especially those with default passwords or other, basic vulnerabilities. And so the Mirai malware will go to a device and try a Swiss Army knife of hacks in order to get it. And they're going after Linux devices, which in the early days, a lot of IoT devices were just Linux.
If they had a Telnet port open, that's how they got in, right?
Yep.
Exactly. And it's not much of a stretch. Yeah. But what they're doing is they're installing crypto mining, which I hate to say this, but that is the politest thing to do when you breach a system, is just steal a little of their bandwidth, steal a little of their processing, You know what? It's like a tapeworm that keeps you from getting fat. It's the absolute nicest of malwares. And if you get a good one, they'll keep the system safe. They'll protect you because they don't want anybody else getting it on their system.
Right.
So this is a big deal.
It's like a tapeworm.
Well, it's stealing your resources.
It is.
Yeah.
I stand by that. I stand by that.
Move over, Ozempic. Now there's tapeworm.
That's right. Ooh. Trichinosis.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So can we do anything about this? And what is it going to affect?
Yeah, absolutely. So usually Mirai, when it came out, targeted systems like IP cameras, like camera systems, and really kind of anything you really don't think about patching, TVs, that sort of stuff. And what they were doing was connecting into those systems using default credentials like usernames and passwords, and then taking over the system and injecting code and using it as a denial of service botnet. This new variant does similar things. It's not just looking for telnet, it's also connecting into SSH, just another way to tunnel into devices, and is looking for weak credentials, right? They're looking for commonly used credential pairs. And then from there are infecting the device with crypto miners. So I'd say, yeah, one of the things you can do is anything that's connected to the internet, anything that you have connected to the internet should have a good username and password. That would stop this from happening.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we're not quite to the point where multi-factor authentication has hit IoT that much. I haven't seen an IoT device.
It's so complicated.
Yeah.
There are some.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. A lot of IoT devices or just devices that you connect to the internet, right?
Yeah.
They have a UI where users can put in their username and password and blah, blah, blah. But they also must have a telnet SSH system username and password that the user doesn't even get to change.
Yes.
So therein lies the problem, is that the accessibility of these things.
Yeah.
For regular users.
So I agree. There's a lot of services in particular devices or users in a particular device that the user doesn't even have control over, right? Yeah. And we've seen that. We'll take like firewalls off the shelf, just go to Best Buy or Target or wherever and buy a commodity, home firewall, and we'll tear it down to the studs. And there are plenty of times we found, root certificate authorities on there that we could then use to pretend to be a particular device, or we found usernames and passwords on there that were used for services and whatnot, but still allowed us to get on the device. So in those cases, there's not much you can do, right? Because those usernames and passwords are on there, and you really just need to put a fence around them. Hey, don't allow anybody on the internet to connect to it. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. But in a lot of cases, things like, let's say it's like a printer or something along those lines, those devices are starting to change a little bit where you now can have tokens for an IoT device. So I can say, okay, I'm going to allow this IoT device to log into this particular service, and it's going to get this token, right? And the token is for that IoT device to authenticate. So users can't authenticate to the device. The device has the ability to authenticate out, right? So there are devices are starting to come around, but yeah, you're right. It's right now the industry is kind of behind the
like what if it was a switch, right?
Sure,
just the network switch that you buy at Best Buy or wherever you go. How on earth you don't connect to a switch? You just plug things into it.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And if it's a smart switch, it's a managed switch. Then it has a
managed switch
default password. Take a Ubiquity PoE switch. Buy one of those, plug it in. Has 8 ports. Default username and password is UBNT.
Wait a minute.
It's criminal career advice.
Right, so guaranteed. Any of those switches that are out there right now, like 70-80% of them, you could use UBNT. Sure enough, you'll log in and you could do whatever you want. Those types of things, lots of people don't think about because you'll buy it, you'll turn it on, you'll plug it in, you'll plug devices into it, and huzzah, it's up and running, right? But nobody thinks about the fact that it also has usernames and passwords and a management interface and a web interface down there. There's all sorts of things you can connect into.
So the moral of the story, don't ever use a managed switch.
If you don't need it, so honestly, don't use it. Who needs it?
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you get a router from a third party, Cox or Xfinity or whoever, and it has Wi-Fi on it, normally we turn that off.
Yeah.
but you can leave it on and make it the IoT network because it's outside of your network, but it still gets to the internet.
Yep.
Okay. So that's one way to deal with it is like if you've got cameras, if you've got thermostats, if you've got that kind of thing, then you can put it outside your network. You should still update those devices.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
But it basically, you want to segregate that network. And I know people aren't going to get like 3 different networks. You need a guest network, you need a production network, and you need a IoT network.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 that I think everybody needs. If you want to put the IoT devices on the guest network and let your family get infected, that's up to you.
Well, yeah.
But that's one way to do it is if you've got like Arrows or Google Homes or something like that, and they have 2 networks, a guest network and a regular network, use them and then have the one that's provided with your router turned on and use that for IoT.
Yeah.
And at least you get network segmentation.
Right. Okay. So good to know there. Let's get to the next one. iShutdown, and that's a lowercase I with the word shutdown. Scripts can help detect iOS spyware on your iPhone.
So there's scripts that have been written, Python scripts, that will let you look at the shutdown log of your iPhone. Now, we're pleading with people to reset the passwords on their IoT devices and update their devices. I don't know if we're going to get people to download their shutdown logs from their iPhone.
Yeah.
But this is key because systems like Pegasus that we've talked about in the fact and other spyware,
right,
this can help you detect it. So if you think, if I was a journalist and I was saying bad things about authoritarian countries, which I often do, then I might do this once a week to check to see if my device is being, threatened. I'd also run in lockdown mode.
Yeah.
But this is one way to do it. And Kaspersky's published three scripts. I'm sure that the data will tell you if you're being monitored, unless it's by Russia, and then they won't.
I thought Kaspersky was something we shouldn't trust anymore.
Yeah.
That's why I just said that comment.
Okay.
Is I would look at the scripts before I ran them. But they're basically what they're doing is they're analyzing the logs. So they're probably pretty simple.
I mean, that's fine for programmers, but how does the end user download a Python script and put it on their iPhone? That seems like an impossible task.
So you don't. Typically, the way these things...
Very carefully.
Yeah, I know. Typically, the way these things work is you'll plug your phone into your computer. So you'll do your iCloud backup and that sort of stuff.
Right.
And when you go in there, you usually can pull out log files and you run the Python script against the log file. So you're not running it on the phone and because the phone doesn't have a Python interpreter or any of that stuff, right? So
well, yeah, I was confused.
Yeah, no. It's usually running.
And I'm betting those logs aren't accessible to an app.
Right.
No, not usually. Usually they're isolated. So typically the way these things work, and there were a couple of them in the past. There was another script I'm trying to remember. I think it looked for Pegasus. It wasn't looking for through shutdown logs. It was looking through system process logs. But it was the same thing. You'd plug your iPhone in, you'd sync it over iCloud, you'd do a quick backup, an unencrypted backup. So you could pick through all the files and you would find a certain log directory, pull it out, and then run a Python script against it. And this one, I would be surprised if it wasn't just the same thing, same type of thing.
This is a good time to mention another product that I use, and it's called iMazing.
iMazing.
Lowercase I and then Mazing, M-A-Z-I-N-G. And basically, this is sort of like managing everything that's on your iPhone, the whole OS, and pulling off videos and
oh, that's cool.
I thought it was a corn shucking.
Amazing. No, it's sort of like the alternative to iTunes, because I know that there's so many people that just love iTunes for Windows. It's like the best UI, the best app they've ever used.
Oh my God.
And it might be difficult for some of these people to consider another app that they can use to manage their iOS devices. But this one, I've found it really, really.
I hate iTunes.
You might like iMazing.
It never lets me do what I want to do. Yeah, I might like iMazing.
I should have rolled my eyes for you, Patrick.
All right. So it does, actually, there's a lot of really neat things it does. Backups.
It does
back up your phone so you can restore it.
Yep.
Do iOS management. Has enterprise solution.
So you must be able to get to the logs from there.
Do we know who writes it?
Well, that's what I was just looking
iMazing
for. Let's see. About Us.
Two important things. Know who prepares your food. Know who writes your code.
Geneva, Switzerland. Developers incorporated in 2008 in Geneva, Switzerland, from a quiet city nestled near the snowy Alps. we write software with the pride and precision the world expects from Swift's craftsmanship.
Patrick, unless they're lying. They're lying. They might be lying.
All right, let me track down where their servers actually are. Hold on.
Would a hacker ever lie to me? No.
Come on.
And if you can't trust the Swiss, I mean, who can you trust? You know what I mean?
I mean, they make the best cheese in the world, according to the Swiss.
And a good set of watches, from what I hear.
Yeah, some chocolate.
Yeah, but they cheat you.
And their army knife, awesome.
They charge you for
cheaters.
They charge you for a block of cheese that's got holes in it.
Hey, fill in that cheese.
I knew he could find some way to denigrate the Swiss.
If you overlook the Nazi gold, I mean, they're great.
Wow. Good dark fast.
Let me cross that country off my list of visiting now.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a long break for about 3 weeks, and we'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. You're listening to Security This Week. I'm Carl Franklin. That's Dwayne LaFlotte and Patrick Hines. And, we're here for your amusement, to make you feel better about yourself because you're not being hacked like these poor suckers are. So,
as far as you know.
All right, so the next one from Bleeping Computer. The U.S. government wants Breach Forum's admin sentenced to 15 years in prison. Okay, what is Breach Forums and who's the admin? What did he do, or she?
So the admin's a guy named Connor Brian Fitzpatrick. And the platform had a lot of data from official databases. So like the official databases section alone had 888 stolen databases and contained 14 billion unique records. So he was trafficking in breach data, and basically creating a form for unauthorized buy and sell of data.
Wow.
Now this is like Silk Road, but without the drugs and weapons and murder.
Although there was pornography, child pornography on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, needless to say, I think the FBI is going to send him to a special hell, but we're going to find out.
Yeah. 15 years sounds like life compared for that.
15.7.
So,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And they quote, they said that by creating a platform for hackers and fraudsters to connect and conduct business, the defendant made it possible for breach forums members to commit exponentially more crimes and more sophisticated crimes than they could have done alone. So he's an enabler. It's kind of like, ransomware as a service kind of person.
He's the guy who sells the weapons, but doesn't use them.
Okay.
That's right. An enabler.
So what do you think? Do you think he deserves 15 years in prison?
Oh, yeah.
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 Oh, yeah. Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's not like he accidentally built a forum and then, they accidentally used it.
Right. And if you think about it, like, listen, like our company has a lot of breach data. And we do. It's just part of the job, right?
Right.
If we're searching through the dark web all the time for all of our customers, we're making sure that there aren't any recent usernames and passwords. We're making sure none of the data's out that our customers are concerned with, et cetera, right? We need to know what's out there in the dark web so we can protect our customers from it. It could be a new breach. It could be a 0 day. It could be whatever, right? So even though we have a trove of this information, we didn't open a forum site and go, hey, we could sell this data. We've spent cubic hours cultivating this database. Why don't we give someone access? Like, no.
Honestly, that would be legal. Because, well, if you think about it, there are companies that will let you look up whether your data is in a breach. Have I been pwned doesn't make the data available to you, but they could in some ways, because instead of harboring breaches that are not public, these databases that you're describing, held by us and our friend Troy Hunt, are done based on data that's been released to the public. It's now open source data. These were systems that were stolen but had not been released to the public. They were for sale.
Yeah.
But even on top of that, though, if we house this massive database of all of these deep, dark secrets, and then we said, Coca-Cola, you want access to Pepsi's data? Yeah, sure. Right? Like Troy Hunt doesn't do that. He doesn't go, you want Patrick Hines' password? Yeah, sure. Right? So I think there's a line there where you have responsible disclosure of the information. If you're doing it to help, like us, right? For example, we'll use it to educate our customers, but it's not like I'm going to go to one of my customers and say, by the way, here are all your competitors and their usernames and passwords we found on the dark web. Right. Do what you will with that. Like, no, we're not going to do that either. That would be illegal.
So it sounds like this guy snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Yes.
You can use that one, Patrick. I give you permission.
Okay.
All right, on to happier things. Vulnerabilities on Bosch Rexroth nut runners. Say that 5 times fast. May be abused to stop production lines, tamper with safety critical tightenings. Well, first of all, what is a nut runner? What is a Rexroth nut runner? And what does Bosch have to do with it?
Nut
the heck
runner.
is this? It looks like a man groomer.
A nut runner. I read it as net runner. And I was like, oh, it's cool. It's like
It's a nut runner.
it's a nut runner.
No, nut runner. So torque wrenches. Torque wrenches are an important part of
torquing.
The job of, manufacturing. Manufacturing. A lot of things have to be put down to just the right torque to hold together, but not be too tight, that kind of thing.
If you're going to torque, you need a wrench.
And Bosch makes an electric version called the unfortunately named the Nut Runner.
The Nut Runner. Nut Runner. I think that'd be a great movie.
Good band. The Nut Runners.
And they also have vulnerabilities because someone decided it would be a good idea to network attach
a nut runner,
one of these devices.
A net nut runner.
Pretty nuts.
Yeah. So this is akin to a hacker saying, I'm going to get control of your brakes. If I can get into a manufacturing facility and cut in half the torque that they put on all the screws, I can have the cars fall apart after 5,000 miles.
Or the airplane doors
pop off too soon. Too soon. I'm getting on an airplane.
I wonder if that's what happened, right? They used a Bosch Rexroth nut runner, and everything wasn't torqued correctly.
Oof!
You wish they used a nut runner.
Oh my god!
They used a guy named Randy with dreadlocks.
Randy the nut runner. All right. So, I mean, is there anything that we can do about this, or was this?
Just check your nuts, people. Make sure they're torqued right.
So this is again an IoT.
Oh yeah.
Did they set their password on their nut runner?
I don't even know that you can. Honestly, never connect your nut runner to the net. That's what I'm.
Tech support. Yes, I'm having a problem connecting to my nut runner.
You just move on. There's a patch from Bosch. Go apply the patch. You be good.
All right. If you have one of these.
Yeah, if you're playing with nut runners.
Then you're not laughing like we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Serious.
Cover your nuts.
We're just like 12-year-old boys at heart.
100%. Never growing up, gentlemen.
Yep.
Not happening.
That's right.
Okay. So here's the story you've been waiting for. How a 27-year-old busted the myth of Bitcoin's anonymity. So, okay, this is an interesting story, but what everybody wants to know is Bitcoin no longer anonymous?
So it's never really been. So here's the thing. There are things built into the way the Bitcoin protocol works that make it hard to trace.
Blockchain.
So like the blockchain, but also the way they implement it, the initial implementation. Technically, the belief was, well, if you establish an email, that's the critical point. If you establish an email and assign it to a wallet, because you have to have an email.
Yeah, of course.
In order to start a wallet. Well, you have to
be authenticated somehow.
You have to establish that email in such a way that it's untraceable to you. Well, that's not trivially easy.
No.
Because you have to provide information. And so for a lot of emails. So you can use throwaway emails and get that. So you start with that. You can never use that email for anything else.
You'd probably have to run your own SMTP server in the cloud somewhere. And
no, because you'd have to pay for that, and therefore the credit for paying for that would come back to you.
Unless you use an open source thing, right?
No, you still have to pay for the hosting.
Right.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Operational security is a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second.
I'm trying to figure out how to break the law here, guys. Help me out.
Okay. I got some ideas.
Well, let's talk about operational security. So you'd have to either, I mean, here's a chicken and egg thing. You'd have to either have Bitcoin in order to go buy the thing, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
You'd have to probably go and buy, and this is, unfortunately, this is criminal career advice.
It's criminal career advice.
You have to go and get a way to either pay cash or anonymously use a credit card. So gift cards bought in places that don't have video, that are bought with cash. That, we're getting murky here.
Or with a clever disguise.
Yes. Ball cap.
Yeah, clever disguise. So let's say you manage to get a credit card that is a gift card.
Right.
And it's bought anonymously. It was bought with cash and it's untraceable to you. Okay. So the first point. Now you have to get on a connection somewhere on a system that's not going to get traced back to you. There's a lot of ways that systems give away. We saw this with the Tor network. The Tor network, sometimes the screen resolution could give you away.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out, like, where am I going to connect? What device am I going to connect to? What MAC address is going to be assigned to that device?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. You're going to get this email and you need to use it. And every time you use it, somebody's going to keep track of where it was used.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about protecting your anonymity from Dwayne, which is hard. I'm talking about the feds, which is much harder.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Because they're going to get the logs. Now, there'll be some places that don't keep logs intentionally.
Right.
Right. But they have backups and maybe the logs got caught in the backups. There's lots of things that can trip you up. So let's say you get an email and you get a connection that is fully, like, completely off the grid, and you're smart enough to not ever use that email for anything else. That was the gold standard before this, because that meant that the feds could unwind the transactions and see where the money went and came from, but they didn't know who was the person getting it. Well, now you've got to get that out as cash somehow.
Right.
Well, one of the mechanisms that people used was they'd put it in mixers. They'd basically send it to a site that would take your Bitcoin, transfer it to another.
Yeah, like a Monero or something along those lines. Right.
Cryptocurrency. And then another one, and then another one. And so you'd leave different blockchains, and then you'd come back and you'd be a completely different wallet. But the government has a lot of computing resources and they have accountants. So what this does is this gives us a peek into what I think was already being done by our brave soldiers in the FBI in financial division. Because most FBI agents have a finance degree, not a combat degree, right? They look for this stuff. So I think what's happened is this Ars Technica article is talking about a woman who, in her spare time, just untangled all the hints and all the things. I have all the faith in the world that all the secrets that she's revealed were already well known by the government.
Michael John.
Yep.
Yeah. So what did she do?
So she's a mathematician. And I think what she did is she worked out the probabilities of certain transactions going together, right? So that you can come up with almost like a trail. Like, hey, it started here and here's what we saw as purchases throughout that made sense.
So maybe somebody bought some Bitcoin and then used that same Bitcoin to buy something which they could use for a nefarious purpose, and then they got something else and used another transaction.
Yeah.
Right.
She did a lot of inferences.
Okay. But they're following a Bitcoin through the ledger, right? Through the blockchain to see where it goes.
Right.
Because you can do that.
Right.
You can. Absolutely.
Right. So let's say a ransomware was paid.
Yeah.
Like Dwayne buys 10 Bitcoin to pay a ransom because he's going to unencrypt something. It gets paid to a wallet that I control, but I've been very good about being anonymous. The email, I bought it with all the right things. I've only accessed it in certain places. I use a VPN every time I access it, that kind of thing. So what she would try to do is try to figure out, where does that Bitcoin end up that benefits me? Because she can't trace it to me on receiving it, but maybe she can trace it to me on my spending it outside of my own network. Yeah. So I might take that Bitcoin and I might wash it, and I might, she doesn't talk about the washing side of things. She just talks about I buy hardware, I buy this, I buy that.
Right.
When the Bitcoin goes to a place where it goes to a vendor, is there a shipping address associated with that vendor for the thing? Because that's how you're going to be de-anonymized. That's how you're going to be discovered. Okay. So she's taking all the anonymization that's in the Bitcoin transaction network, and she's figuring out the inferences to figure out, like, they give an example in the article, like, if you have 10 Bitcoin and you spend 6, there's 2 resulting accounts. One has 6 and one has 4. and they trace back to the one that had 10. But now there's 2 accounts. But you don't know whether 4 was spent and 6 is remaining or 6 was spent and 4 is remaining. But you can infer that by what happens next.
Right. Yeah. So if, for example, the 4 Bitcoin wallet was just created and never existed before, then it's the change left over.
You know,
because when you buy something with Bitcoin, the address that's associated with it, your whole wallet changes over, and you have whatever's left is in a new address, right? That's how the chain works. And what you paid for went into another wallet that's probably being used still. So yeah, that was that inference she was talking about.
You know, when I first heard about blockchain and Bitcoin, and everybody said, oh, you know, it's not traceable, it's anonymous and stuff. However, it is open, and you see this ledger, and you can see who did what and when and stuff. And I'm like, how is that anonymous? I mean, I had
right?
that natural reaction.
Yes.
But everybody was ignoring this, you know, that, oh, maybe nobody could figure it out. It's impossible. It's like, how have you heard of AI? I mean,
I always assumed.
Yeah.
I always assumed it was not anonymous. Unless you...
Me too. That's why I've never used it. I mean, I never used it for anything nefarious or not.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't use it.
Well, how do you get your ransomware payments then?
You should know. You ransomed me. Oh, my God. So she basically brought it to everyone's attention that, you know what, it's never been anonymous. And with a little bit of inference and some logic, you know, you can figure out where things go. And certainly with AI, you could figure it out, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's actually, what she did is probably not something the average person is going to be able to do.
Right.
But an AI system programmed with this procedure would absolutely be spitting it out like no problem.
So is Bitcoin, is cryptocurrency numbered? Days numbered?
Nah.
I don't think so, because we still have the idea. One, a lot of people use it for normal, reasonable reasons. The criminals, most of them, other than our friend who's going to in the 15 years, are smart enough to be in jurisdictions where they're not going to get prosecuted. Russia doesn't prosecute hackers unless they hack Russia. Mm. So you can trace to Bitcoin wallets in Russia all day long, and they don't care. Yeah. They're not going to get prosecuted. If the world had rule of law and prosecuted people, you know, uniformly, then yes, this would be a big step in making Bitcoin no longer usable by the criminal world, but we're not there.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, it says here, as she's digging into cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency forums and addresses and blah, 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 she actually found an interesting address worth scrutinizing. One mysterious mountain of money in particular stood out. There is a single Bitcoin wallet address that has, over the course since 2012, accumulated 613,326 Bitcoins, which represents 5% of all of the Bitcoins in the net. And it's about
how many billions or trillions of dollars is that?
It's in the billions of dollars.
Wow.
That's one guy who probably forgot his address password. His wallet password.
Right.
Mined a whole bunch of them early on, forgot it, and now he's kicking himself.
Jeez,
could be a billionaire.
All right, but no. All right, guys, I guess we'll leave it at that. Have a great week. Oh, by the way, we don't have a show next week, right?
Correct.
Too much travel.
Too much travel going on.
Yeah, too much stuff going on. So
to undisclosed locations.
Skiffs all over. Yep.
So we will talk to you guys in 2 weeks. So we're going to have a double-sized stuffed show for you.
Woo-hoo.
Until then, don't take any wooden nickels, and we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.